The sun was just coming up over the red hills of Helios 7 when Nathan Clark heard the emergency call. He was drinking his morning coffee in the small medical tent that served as the colony's hospital. The voice on the radio belonged to Kyle Bennett, one of the miners who worked in the outer regions. "Doc, you need to come out here right now. I found something big. Really big. And I think it's dying." Nathan put down his coffee cup and grabbed his medical bag. He didn't ask too many questions over the radio. Kyle was a calm man who didn't panic easily. If he said something was urgent, it probably was. The drive out to Sector 9 took almost an hour. Nathan pushed the old rover as fast as it would go across the rough ground. The colony on Helios 7 was small, just 83 people trying to make a life on this harsh planet. They grew food, mined minerals, and hoped that one day this place would become a real home. Nathan was the only doctor for miles around. He had treated broken arms, bad cuts, and strange infections from the local plants. But he had never treated an alien animal before. He wondered what Kyle had found out there in the empty lands. When Nathan arrived at the location, he saw Kyle standing next to his vehicle. The miner was looking at something in the distance and his face was pale. "Over there," Kyle said, pointing across the plain. Nathan looked where Kyle was pointing and his mouth fell open. At first, he thought he was looking at a small hill or a pile of rocks. Then the hill moved and Nathan realized it was alive. The creature was enormous. It stood as tall as a 3-story building, with 6 thick legs that looked like tree trunks. Its body was covered in rough blue-gray skin that looked almost like stone. 2 huge tusks curved up from its long nose, each tusk as big as Nathan himself. The creature's eyes were a bright amber color and they looked sad and full of pain. "What is it?" Nathan asked in a quiet voice. "The Xyloth people call them granite walkers," Kyle explained. The Xyloth were a local alien species that sometimes traded with the colony. They migrate through this area every few years. Big herds of them, maybe 50 or 60 at a time. This one got left behind 3 days ago. I've been watching it from far away. It hasn't moved much." Nathan could see why the creature had been left behind. Its left front leg was swollen up like a balloon. The skin looked tight and shiny, stretched over something bad underneath. The creature was shaking, and every breath it took seemed to hurt. It made a low, sad sound that made Nathan's heart ache. "Why would the herd leave it?" Nathan asked. Kyle shrugged. "Survival, I guess. The Xyloth told me that granite walkers can't slow down during migration. There are predators that follow the herds. A sick animal would slow everyone down and put them all in danger. It's cruel, but that's nature." Nathan started walking slowly toward the creature. He kept his hands where it could see them, showing he wasn't carrying any weapons. The granite walker watched him come closer, but it didn't try to run or attack. It just stood there, trembling with pain, looking like it had given up hope. "I'm going to help you," Nathan said softly. He knew the creature couldn't understand his words, but maybe it could hear the kindness in his voice. He pulled out his medical scanner and pointed it at the creature. The scanner was made for checking human bodies, but it could still tell him some basic things about the alien. What it told him was not good. The swelling in the leg was caused by a huge infection deep inside the tissue. The creature's body temperature was too high. Its heart rate was fast and irregular. Without help, the granite walker would be dead in less than 2 days. Nathan walked all the way around the creature, studying it from every angle. The granite walker turned its head to follow him, but it didn't make any threatening moves. Up close, Nathan could see other details. The creature had small ears that lay flat against its head. Its feet had thick pads on the bottom that spread out when it put weight on them. Its tail was short and thick with a tuft of coarse hair at the end. The infected leg was the biggest problem. Nathan had seen infections like this before in humans, though never this big. It was called an abscess, a pocket of pus and infection deep in the muscle. The only way to fix it was to cut it open and drain all the bad stuff out. But how could he do that to a creature this size? And how could he do it without getting crushed? "We need to go back to the colony," Nathan said to Kyle. "I need to talk to the administrator and get some supplies." "You're actually going to try to save it?" Kyle asked, surprised. "I have to try," Nathan said. "Look at it, Kyle. It's in terrible pain. And it's smart. You can see intelligence in those eyes. I can't just leave it here to die." Kyle nodded slowly. "The Xyloth will remember this if you save one of their sacred animals. It could be good for relations between our species." Nathan hadn't thought about that, but Kyle was right. The colony needed good relations with the Xyloth. They knew this planet better than any human ever would. They could teach the colonists how to survive here. Before they left, Nathan did something that surprised even himself. He walked right up to the granite walker and placed his hand on its rough skin. The creature flinched but didn't pull away. Its skin was warm, warmer than Nathan expected. He could feel the fever burning through that massive body. "I'll be back," Nathan promised. "I'm going to help you feel better." The creature made another low sound, softer this time. Then it lowered its head just a little bit, as if it understood. On the drive back to the colony, Nathan's mind was racing. He had so many problems to solve. How much sedative would it take to make a creature that size sleepy enough to work on? How would he cut through that thick skin? What if the infection had spread too far? What if he made a mistake and the creature died anyway? But beneath all those worries was a deeper feeling. Nathan had become a doctor because he wanted to help others, to ease suffering wherever he found it. It didn't matter if the patient was human or alien. Pain was pain, suffering was suffering, and he had the skills to make a difference. When Nathan got back to the colony, he went straight to Administrator Greg Palmer's office. Greg was a practical man who had to make hard choices every day about how to use their limited resources. Nathan explained what he had found and what he wanted to do. Greg listened without interrupting, his face getting more and more concerned. "Nathan, I understand you want to help," Greg said when the doctor finished talking, "but we can't spare medical supplies for an animal. We barely have enough for our own people. What if someone gets hurt tomorrow and we don't have the supplies to treat them because we used them on this creature?" "I'll only use what we can spare," Nathan argued. "And think about the bigger picture. If we save one of the Xyloth's sacred animals, it will improve our relationship with them. They'll trust us more. They'll be more willing to help us." Greg drummed his fingers on his desk, thinking hard. Nathan could see him weighing the risks and benefits in his mind. "And there's the scientific value, too," Nathan added. "We know almost nothing about these creatures. This could be a chance to learn about their biology, their behavior. That knowledge could be valuable." Finally, Greg sighed. "All right. You can try. But the moment any colonist needs those supplies, they get priority. The animal comes second. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear," Nathan said, relief flooding through him. "Thank you, Greg." As Nathan left the office, he felt both excited and terrified. He was about to attempt the biggest medical procedure of his life on a patient that could accidentally kill him with one step. But he couldn't let fear stop him. Somewhere out there in Sector 9, a creature was suffering, and Nathan Clark had made a promise to help. Nathan spent the rest of the day getting ready for the procedure. He knew he couldn't do this alone, so he asked Lisa Monroe for help. Lisa had worked with large animals back on Earth before she came to Helios 7. She knew about cows, horses, and even elephants. If anyone could help him with a creature the size of a building, it was Lisa. They met in the medical tent and spread out everything they knew about granite walkers. There wasn't much information in the colony database, just a few notes from traders and some rough drawings of their anatomy. "Their bodies have multiple hearts," Lisa said, reading from her tablet, "and backup organs for almost everything. They're built to survive in really harsh conditions. That's probably why this one is still alive even with such a bad infection. But that also means we don't know how medicine will affect it," Nathan said, worried. "If we give it too much sedative, we could kill it. If we don't give it enough, it might panic and hurt us." Lisa nodded. "And there's another problem. Even if we get it calm enough to work on, we need to actually cut into that leg and drain the infection. That's going to hurt a lot. The creature might wake up from the pain and react." Nathan had been thinking about this all day. "We'll use a local anesthetic too. Numb the area as much as we can, and we'll work fast. Get in, drain the abscess, clean it out, and get out." "You make it sound simple," Lisa said with a small smile. "But nothing about this is simple. They spent hours calculating drug dosages based on the creature's estimated weight. Nathan had used his scanner to measure the granite walker as best he could. He guessed it weighed somewhere between 30 and 40 tons. That was as heavy as 6 or 7 elephants. The math was complicated and involved a lot of guessing. One wrong number could be fatal. That evening, Nathan drove back out to Sector 9 alone. He brought containers of water and some of the local plants that the Xyloth had said granite walkers like to eat. He wanted to check on the creature and maybe start building some trust. The granite walker was still in the same spot, though it had dragged itself under a rocky outcrop that provided shade from the hot sun. When Nathan's rover appeared, the creature's ears perked up and it turned its head to watch him approach. "Hey there." Nathan said, getting out of the vehicle. He moved slowly and kept talking in a calm voice. I brought you some water. I bet you're thirsty. He set down the containers about 10 meters from the creature and stepped back. The granite walker watched him carefully. Then slowly it extended its long trunk toward the water. The trunk had two finger-like projections at the end that it used to grip things. It tested the water cautiously, then sucked up a large amount and sprayed it into its mouth. Nathan smiled. That was a good sign. The creature was still alert enough to be careful about strange things, but it was also desperate enough for water to take the risk. I'm going to help you tomorrow, Nathan continued, even though he knew the creature couldn't understand the words. It's going to be scary at first and it might hurt, but then you'll feel so much better. I promise. The granite walker finished drinking and made a low rumbling sound. The sound seemed to come from deep in its chest, vibrating through the air. It wasn't threatening. It almost sounded like the creature was trying to communicate. Nathan took a careful step closer, then another. The granite walker watched him but didn't move away. When Nathan was close enough to touch, he slowly reached out and placed his hand on the creature's shoulder. The skin felt like warm stone, rough but somehow smooth at the same time. We're going to take care of you, Nathan whispered. The creature's amber eyes looked directly into Nathan's eyes. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Nathan felt a connection form in that moment, an understanding that crossed the barrier between species. This creature knew it was sick. It knew it had been abandoned, and somehow it seemed to understand that Nathan wanted to help. When Nathan drove back to the colony that night, he felt more determined than ever. This wasn't just about medicine anymore. It was personal. The next morning came too quickly. Nathan woke up before dawn, his stomach full of nervous butterflies. Today was the day. He would either save the granite walker's life or fail trying. Lisa was already awake when he got to the medical tent. She had loaded all their equipment into a large rover. Kyle was there too, along with 2 other colonists who had volunteered to help. Their names were Danny Reeves and Chloe Peterson. Danny worked in construction and was strong enough to help lift equipment. Chloe was a biologist who wanted to observe and document everything. Everyone ready? Nathan asked. They all nodded, though Danny looked nervous. The drive to Sector 9 felt longer than usual, even though it took the same amount of time. Nathan kept going over the plan in his head. First, sedate the creature. Second, wait for it to get drowsy. Third, move in and prepare the surgical site. Fourth, make the incision and drain the abscess. Fifth, clean and close the wound. Simple steps, but each one could go horribly wrong. When they arrived, the granite walker was lying down, which was not a good sign. It took enormous energy for a creature that size to stand up. If it was lying down in the daytime, it meant the infection was getting worse. We need to move fast, Lisa said, seeing the same thing Nathan saw. Nathan loaded the sedative into a large injection device powered by compressed air. The device was designed to shoot medicine through thick animal hide. He approached the granite walker slowly, talking the whole time. Hey, it's me again. Remember me from yesterday? I brought friends to help. The creature lifted its head slightly, recognizing Nathan. Its breathing was shallow and fast, and there was a slight foam around its mouth. These were bad signs. This is going to make you sleepy, Nathan said, getting as close as he dared. Don't be scared. It's going to help. He pressed the injection device against a thin patch of skin just behind the creature's front leg and triggered it. There was a loud hiss as the sedative shot into the granite walker's body. The creature flinched and made a startled sound, but it didn't try to attack or run away. Now came the hardest part, waiting. Nathan and his team stood at a safe distance and watched for signs that the drug was working. Minutes ticked by slowly. Nathan counted his own heartbeats, trying to stay calm. After 5 minutes, the granite walker's eyes started to droop. Its huge head lowered toward the ground, moving in slow motion. The tension in its body began to ease as the pain medication in the mixture started to work. It's working, Lisa whispered. Let's go. They all moved forward carefully, even though the creature was sedated. One wrong step from those massive feet could still crush them. Nathan and Lisa went straight to the infected leg while the others set up equipment nearby. Up close, the abscess looked even worse than Nathan had thought. The skin was stretched tight and had turned an ugly purple color in some spots. He could see the infection trying to burst through the skin in several places. This is really bad, Lisa said quietly. There must be gallons of infected fluid in there. Nathan pulled out his scanner again and studied the readings. The abscess went deep into the muscle tissue, maybe half a meter down. They would need to make a big cut to drain it properly. Okay, Nathan said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Let's prep the site. They cleaned the area with strong antiseptic, washing away dirt and dried blood. Then Nathan marked where he would make the incision, using a surgical marker to draw a line about 30 centimeters long. Ready? He asked Lisa. Ready, she replied. Nathan picked up the laser scalpel, the same tool he used for human surgery. It looked like a toy against the massive scale of the granite walker's body. He took a deep breath, steadied his hand, and made the first cut. The moment Nathan's laser scalpel broke through the skin, everything changed. A fountain of thick yellowish fluid exploded from the wound. The smell that came with it was terrible, like rotting meat mixed with chemicals. It was so bad that Danny turned away and started coughing hard. Even Nathan, who had smelled plenty of bad things as a doctor, had to fight the urge to step back. "Keep going," Lisa said, her voice tight. She was holding a collection container, trying to catch as much of the fluid as possible. "We need to drain all of it." Nathan made the incision longer, carefully cutting through the tough hide. More and more infected fluid poured out, flowing down the creature's leg and soaking into the red dirt. There was so much of it, far more than Nathan had expected. The abscess must have been growing for weeks, maybe even months. As they worked, the granite walker made a sound. It was different from the sad, painful sounds Nathan had heard before. The sound was lower, calmer, almost like a sigh of relief. Even though the creature was sedated, some part of it understood that the terrible pressure in its leg was finally being released. "Look at this," Lisa said, shining a light into the wound. "The infection has damaged a lot of the muscle tissue. See that gray stuff? That's dead tissue. We're going to have to remove it." Nathan nodded. Dead tissue would just cause more infection if they left it there. He switched to a different tool, a small surgical saw that could cut through the necrotic muscle. It was slow, careful work. One wrong move could damage healthy tissue or cut into a blood vessel. Chloe was taking pictures and making notes on her tablet. "This is incredible," she said. "No human has ever done surgery on a granite walker before. We're making history." "Let's make sure it's good history," Nathan muttered, concentrating on his work. The surgery took hours. Nathan and Lisa took turns, switching off when their arms got tired. They flushed the wound with antibiotics, removed dead tissue, and checked for any remaining pockets of infection. Kyle and Danny helped by handing them tools and holding equipment. Everyone worked together like a well-trained team. Around midday, the Helios 7 sun was beating down hard. Chloe set up a shade cover over the surgical site to keep the harsh light off the wound. Danny brought water bottles for everyone. They took quick breaks to drink and wipe sweat from their faces, but they never stopped working for long. "Almost done," Nathan said, examining his scanner readings. "The main infection has been drained. Now we need to insert drainage tubes and close the wound." Drainage tubes were important. They would let any remaining fluid drain out over the next few days, preventing the infection from coming back. Nathan inserted 4 tubes deep into the wound, securing them with careful stitches. Then he and Lisa began the long process of closing the incision. Stitching up a wound this size was like sewing a tent. Nathan used heavy surgical thread and a curved needle. Each stitch had to be strong enough to hold the thick skin together while the creature moved and walked. He made the stitches close together, trying to minimize scarring and give the wound the best chance to heal. The granite walker stirred a few times during the procedure. Its eyes would flutter open for a moment, and it would make a quiet sound. But the sedative held, and the creature never fully woke up. Nathan was grateful for that. If the walker had panicked while they were working, people could have been seriously hurt or killed. By the time they finished, the sun was starting to sink toward the horizon. Nathan's hands were shaking from tiredness, and his back hurt from bending over for so long. But when he looked at the closed wound, neatly stitched and covered with a protective bandage, he felt a huge sense of accomplishment. "We did it," Lisa said, her voice full of amazement. "We actually did it." The others cheered quietly, not wanting to startle the resting creature. Danny clapped Nathan on the shoulder. Chloe was grinning from ear to ear as she reviewed all the photos and notes she had taken. "Now comes the hard part," Nathan said. "We need to make sure it heals properly. Infection could still come back. The stitches could tear if the creature moves wrong. And we need to change those drainage tubes every day. One step at a time," Kyle said. "Right now, let's just celebrate that the worst is over." They packed up their equipment and moved back to a safe distance to watch the granite walker wake up. The sedative would wear off slowly over the next hour or so. Nathan wanted to be there when the creature regained consciousness, to make sure there were no complications. As the sky turned orange and purple with sunset, the granite walker's eyes began to open. The huge creature blinked slowly, looking confused. It tried to lift its head, moving carefully as if testing whether its body still worked. Then it looked down at its leg. The swelling had already gone down noticeably. The angry purple color was fading, and while the stitched wound looked dramatic, it was clean and properly treated. The granite walker made a sound that Nathan had never heard before. It was a deep, musical note that seemed to vibrate through the ground. The creature slowly, carefully put weight on the treated leg. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, it could stand without terrible pain. Nathan felt tears in his eyes. He wiped them away quickly, hoping no one noticed. But Lisa saw, and she smiled at him. "You gave it its life back," she said softly. The granite walker turned its massive head toward Nathan. Their eyes met, and Nathan saw something that looked like understanding. The creature took one step forward, then another. It was walking, actually walking, without limping or crying out in pain. Then the granite walker did something that surprised everyone. It walked slowly over to where Nathan stood and lowered its enormous head until it was level with his chest. The long trunk reached out and gently touched Nathan's face. The touch was so gentle, so careful that Nathan could barely feel it. "You're welcome," Nathan whispered, reaching up to touch the trunk in return. The moment lasted only a few seconds, but Nathan knew he would remember it for the rest of his life. This creature, this massive alien being, was saying thank you in the only way it could. As darkness fell, the team set up lights around the area. Nathan didn't want to leave the granite walker alone on its first night after surgery. What if something went wrong? What if predators smelled the blood and came looking for an easy meal? "I'll stay with it tonight," Nathan announced. "The rest of you should go back to the colony and get some rest." "I'll stay too," Lisa said immediately. "You need someone to help if there's an emergency." Kyle volunteered to stay as well. 3 people are better than 2, and I've got some experience dealing with the local predators. They made camp a short distance from the granite walker, close enough to keep watch, but far enough to give the creature space. Danny and Chloe drove back to the colony to report their success and bring back more supplies. The night was cold on Helios 7. The temperature dropped fast once the sun went down. Nathan sat by a small heater, watching the granite walker by the light of their portable lamps. The creature had found a comfortable spot to lie down and seemed to be resting peacefully. Every hour, Nathan would walk over and check the drainage tubes, making sure they were working properly. Around midnight, Kyle pointed at something in the distance. "Look," he said quietly. 3 tall, thin figures were approaching, their bodies catching the light in strange ways. Nathan recognized them immediately. Xyloth. The local aliens had crystal-like skin that bent light into rainbow patterns. They moved with a flowing grace that looked almost like dancing. Nathan stood up and raised his hands in the Xyloth greeting gesture. The aliens came closer, and Nathan could see that they carried no weapons. They were here peacefully. The tallest Xyloth spoke, and Nathan heard its voice through a translation device hanging around its neck. The device turned the aliens' musical language into English that Nathan could understand. "We are the Watchers of the Herd," the Xyloth said. "We came to perform death rites for the abandoned one. But we find it lives. You have done what we thought impossible, human doctor." "I did what any healer would do," Nathan replied. "The walker was suffering. I had to help." The Xyloth's crystalline features shifted in what might have been a smile. "Most beings would not have tried. The granite walkers are sacred to our people. They are ancient, wise, and powerful. To save one is a great honor. To save one that was abandoned is a miracle." The Xyloth approached the sleeping granite walker and placed a long, thin hand on its side. They stood there for a moment in silence, as if communicating in some way Nathan couldn't understand. Then the Xyloth turned back to Nathan. "The herd will return in 3 moon cycles. We have sent word to them that their lost one lives. They will know of your kindness, human. The Xyloth name Ukalseth. It means guardian of the gentle giants in your language." Nathan felt honored by the title the Xyloth had given him, but he also felt humble. He was just a doctor doing his job. Still, He understood that this moment meant something bigger than just one medical procedure. It was a bridge between species, a sign that humans and aliens could work together and care for each other. The Xyloth stayed for about an hour, watching over the granite walker with Nathan and his team. Then they disappeared into the night as quietly as they had come, leaving behind a small gift. It was a crystal pendant that glowed softly in the dark. They said it's a symbol of respect, Lisa explained, having spoken with one of the Xyloth through the translation device. They give these to beings they consider friends. Nathan put the pendant in his pocket carefully. He would treasure it always. Over the next few days, Nathan visited the granite walker twice every day. Each time he changed the bandages, checked the drainage tubes, and made sure the wound was healing properly. And each time, he was amazed by how quickly the creature recovered. On the second day, the walker was standing and moving around more. It was eating the local plants again, using its trunk to pull up vegetation and stuff it into its mouth. Its eyes were brighter and the fever had gone down completely. On the third day, Nathan removed 2 of the drainage tubes. The wound was healing cleanly with no signs of new infection. The creature barely flinched when Nathan worked on the stitches. It seemed to trust him completely now. "This is remarkable," Lisa said, studying the healing tissue through a magnifying lens. "The rate of healing is much faster than in Earth animals of comparable size. The granite walker's biology must have some incredible regenerative properties." She was taking samples and making detailed notes for the colony's scientific database. This information would be valuable for future medical treatments, both for granite walkers and potentially for humans too. By the end of the first week, the whole colony had heard about Nathan's success. People started coming out to Sector 9 just to see the creature everyone was calling Boulder. Nathan didn't like the name at first, thinking it was too simple, but it stuck. The granite walker didn't seem to mind. Boulder had started following Nathan around when he visited. The massive creature would walk alongside the rover, its footsteps shaking the ground. Sometimes it would reach out with its trunk and touch Nathan's shoulder, as if checking that he was still there. "It's bonded with you," Chloe observed one day. She had come back several times to continue her study of the creature. "I've never seen anything like it. Boulder sees you as part of its family now." Nathan had to admit that he felt the same connection. There was something special about this creature, something that went beyond just doctor and patient. Maybe it was because Boulder had been abandoned and Nathan had refused to abandon it. Maybe it was because they had both taken a risk to trust each other. Whatever the reason, they had formed a friendship that crossed the boundaries of species. The colony's attitude toward the whole situation had changed too. At first, some people had complained about wasting resources on an animal, but now they saw the benefits. The Xyloth were visiting more often and bringing gifts of food and knowledge. They taught the colonists about which plants were safe to eat and which ones were poisonous. They showed them where to find water during the dry season. They shared maps of the safest routes through the mountains. Administrator Greg Palmer was particularly pleased. "You were right, Nathan," he admitted one day. "Saving Boulder was good for more than just the creature. It's helped us build real relationships with the Xyloth. They trust us now. They see us as people who care about life, not just as invaders taking from their planet." Nathan was glad things had worked out, but he never forgot that his main concern had always been Boulder's well-being. The politics and diplomacy were just nice side effects. 2 weeks after the surgery, Nathan removed the last drainage tube and took out the stitches. The wound had healed into a long scar, but it was clean and healthy. Boulder barely had a limp anymore. The creature was almost back to full strength. "You're all better now," Nathan said, patting Boulder's leg. "You could probably catch up with your herd if you wanted to." But Boulder didn't leave. The creature stayed near the colony, grazing on the plains and drinking from the nearby stream. Every time Nathan visited, Boulder would come running, or at least moving as fast as a creature that size could move. The reunion was always the same. Boulder would lower its head and Nathan would reach up to touch the creature's face. They would stand like that for a moment, 2 beings from different worlds sharing a quiet connection. Lisa found the whole thing fascinating from a scientific perspective. "Boulder is choosing to stay near humans," she said. "That's significant. Granite walkers are migratory by nature. They should have an instinct to keep moving, to find their herd. But Boulder is overriding that instinct to stay near you." "Maybe it's just waiting for the herd to come back," Nathan suggested. "Maybe," Lisa agreed. "But I think it's more than that. I think Boulder feels safe here. After being abandoned and then saved, this place represents security and care. Those are powerful motivations. Nathan started bringing special treats when he visited. The Xyloth had told him that granite walkers loved a particular type of fruit that grew in the northern valleys. Nathan made the long drive to get some, and Boulder's reaction was worth the effort. The creature trumpeted with joy and gently took the fruits from Nathan's hands, eating them one by one with obvious pleasure. One day, about a month after the surgery, Nathan brought his whole medical team out to visit Boulder. He wanted them all to see how well the creature was doing. Danny, Chloe, Kyle, and Lisa all came, along with a few other colonists who had helped in small ways. Boulder greeted them all like old friends. The creature was clearly comfortable around humans now, letting them come close and even allowing them to touch its trunk and legs. The change from the sick, frightened creature they had first met was incredible. "We should celebrate," Danny suggested. "This is a real success story. How often do people get to save an alien megafauna?" They had a small party right there on the plains, with Boulder watching over them like a gentle guardian. People laughed and shared food and told stories. Boulder seemed to enjoy the gathering, making happy rumbling sounds and occasionally reaching out with its trunk to investigate the interesting smells. As the sun set that evening, Nathan sat on a rock and watched Boulder grazing peacefully. He thought about how close the creature had come to dying. If Kyle hadn't found it, if Nathan hadn't been willing to try, if the surgery had gone wrong in any of a dozen ways, Boulder would be gone now. But instead the creature was healthy and strong, living proof that compassion could cross any barrier. Greg Palmer sat down next to Nathan. "You know, I've been thinking," the administrator said. "What you did out here changed more than just Boulder's life. It changed all of us. The colonists feel more connected to this planet now. We're not just trying to survive here anymore. We're part of the ecosystem, part of the community that includes the Xyloth and the granite walkers and all the other life on Helios 7. Nathan nodded. "That's how it should be. We're guests on this world. We should act like it." "The Xyloth have been talking about making this area a protected zone," Greg continued, "a place where granite walkers can rest safely during their migrations. They want to name it after you." "That's not necessary," Nathan said quickly. "Maybe not necessary, but deserved," Greg replied. "You've earned their respect, Nathan. And ours too." As the stars came out overhead, Nathan felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in a long time. Life on Helios 7 was still hard. The colony still faced challenges every day. But they had proven something important. They had proven that humans could be more than just survivors or conquerors. They could be healers and friends and guardians. Boulder came over and lowered its head next to Nathan. The creature's warm breath ruffled his hair. Nathan reached up and scratched behind Boulder's ear, a spot that always made the creature's eyes close with contentment. "Good night, Boulder," Nathan said softly. The granite walker made a quiet rumbling sound like a good night in return. 3 months had passed since the day Nathan first found Boulder dying in the wasteland. The seasons were changing on Helios 7 and the air was getting cooler. Nathan could see flocks of flying creatures heading south, following their ancient migration patterns. Everything on this planet moved with the seasons, including the granite walkers. Boulder had stayed near the colony all this time, becoming a familiar sight on the red plains. Children would wave to the creature from the colony's outer fence, and Boulder would lift its trunk in what looked like a wave back. The massive animal had become a kind of mascot for the settlement, a symbol of what could happen when different species chose kindness over fear. Nathan visited Boulder almost every day. Sometimes he came to check on the healing scar, which was now just a thin line on the creature's leg, but most of the time he came just to spend time with his friend. They had developed a routine. Boulder would be waiting near the usual spot, and Nathan would bring treats or just sit on a rock nearby while Boulder grazed. One morning, Nathan noticed that Boulder seemed restless. The creature kept looking toward the western horizon, its ears twitching and its trunk raised high to catch scents on the wind. It made a sound Nathan had never heard before, a long, low call that carried across the plains. "What is it, Boulder?" Nathan asked, but he already suspected the answer. Lisa came out to investigate later that day. She had brought her equipment to study Boulder's behavior. After watching for an hour, she turned to Nathan with a knowing look. "The herd is coming back," she said. "Boulder can sense them. Granite walkers can communicate over huge distances using sounds too low for human ears to hear. Boulder is calling to them and they're calling back. Nathan felt a mix of emotions. He was happy that Boulder would be reunited with its family. But he was also sad knowing that his friend might leave and never come back. He had known this day would come eventually, but that didn't make it any easier. The next day, the Xyloth arrived at the colony. A group of 5 came to speak with Greg Palmer and Nathan. The tall Xyloth named Elder Cree, who had spoken to Nathan before, explained what was happening. The herd arrives at sunset tomorrow, Elder Cree said through the translation device. They come to reclaim the one you call Boulder. The matriarch of the herd has heard the story of the human healer. She wishes to meet you. Nathan felt nervous about meeting the leader of a granite walker herd. These were massive, powerful creatures. Their matriarch would be the biggest and strongest of all. But he also felt honored. This was a rare opportunity, maybe even a historic one. The next day seemed to last forever. Nathan couldn't focus on his regular work. He kept thinking about Boulder and the herd and what would happen when they met. Would Boulder remember him after rejoining the herd? Would the other granite walkers be friendly or aggressive toward the humans? As the sun began to set, Nathan drove out to Sector 9. Kyle, Lisa, Danny, and Chloe came with him. So did Greg Palmer and about 20 other colonists who wanted to witness this moment. The Xyloth were already there, standing in a wide circle around Boulder. Boulder was pacing back and forth, clearly excited. The creature kept making that long, low calling sound, and now Nathan could feel it in his chest, a vibration that seemed to come from the earth itself. Then they saw them. On the western horizon, dark shapes appeared against the orange sky. 1 granite walker, then 2, then 5, then 10. They kept coming until there were at least 20 of the massive creatures walking in formation across the plains. The ground shook with each step they took. It was like watching a mountain range come to life and move. The sound of their footsteps was like thunder, constant and powerful. Nathan had never seen anything so magnificent or so terrifying in his life. Boulder stopped pacing and stood very still. The herd approached slowly, and Nathan could see that they were being cautious. They had left Boulder behind once. Now they were coming to see if their lost family member was truly recovered. The largest granite walker, the matriarch, stepped forward from the group. She was even bigger than Boulder, ancient and powerful with tusks that had been worn smooth by decades of use. Her eyes were a deep amber color filled with wisdom and sadness. The matriarch walked straight to Boulder and the 2 creatures entwined their trunks together. The gesture was so tender, so full of emotion that Nathan felt tears running down his face. He wasn't ashamed. Looking around, he saw that many others were crying too. Even the usually stoic Kyle was wiping his eyes. The reunion lasted several minutes. The matriarch examined Boulder carefully, running her trunk over the scar on the leg, checking every part of Boulder's body as if to make sure the recovery was real. The other members of the herd came forward one by one, greeting Boulder with trunk touches and rumbling sounds. Then the matriarch turned toward Nathan. The huge creature walked slowly in his direction, and Nathan had to fight the urge to run. This was a being that could crush him without even noticing, but he stood his ground, remembering that Boulder trusted him. Surely the matriarch would sense that trust. The matriarch stopped a few meters away and lowered her massive head until it was level with Nathan. She looked directly into his eyes, and Nathan felt like she was looking into his soul. Time seemed to freeze in that moment. The whole world was reduced to just the 2 of them, human and granite walker, separated by biology but connected by something deeper. Then the matriarch did something incredible. She bent her front legs and lowered her entire body into what could only be described as a bow. Behind her, the other members of the herd did the same. 20 massive creatures, each one powerful enough to destroy the human colony if they wanted to, bowing to show respect and gratitude. Nathan didn't know what to do, so he bowed back as deeply as he could. It seemed like the right response. The matriarch rose and approached closer. She extended her trunk and gently touched Nathan's face, just as Boulder had done after the surgery. The touch was soft as a feather, controlled with incredible precision. Then she made a sound, a complex series of rumbles and trumpets that the Xyloth translation device couldn't interpret. Elder Cree stepped forward. She says that you have given her herd a gift beyond price. She says that humans are now friends to the granite walkers forever. She says that as long as the stones remember and the stars shine, her people will remember what you did. Nathan felt overwhelmed by emotion. "I just wanted to help," he managed to say. Boulder was suffering. "I couldn't leave a friend to die." Elder Cree translated, and the matriarch made another sound. "She says that is why you were worthy to help. Because you saw a friend, not just an animal." Boulder came over to stand next to Nathan one last time. The creature lowered its head and Nathan reached up to touch Boulder's face, just as he had done so many times before. "You need to go with your family now," Nathan said softly. "They need you and you need them. But I'll never forget you, Boulder. You taught me that friendship can exist anywhere, even between a human and a creature from another world." Boulder made a soft rumbling sound and touched Nathan's chest with the tip of its trunk, right over his heart. The gesture felt like a promise, like Boulder was saying that Nathan would always be remembered too. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, the Granite Walker herd began to move. Boulder walked with them, glancing back several times at Nathan and the other humans. The colonists waved goodbye, calling out farewells that Boulder probably couldn't understand but might feel anyway. Nathan watched until the herd disappeared into the darkness, their shapes becoming one with the night. He felt empty and full at the same time. Empty because his friend was gone, but full because he had been part of something beautiful and important. The story of Nathan Clark and Boulder spread quickly. News traveled from Helio 7 to other colonies, then to the core worlds of human space. Within weeks, people across the galaxy were talking about the doctor who had saved an alien creature. Within months, the story had inspired others to show compassion to non-human species. Scientists began studying Granite Walker biology in detail, using the information that Lisa had collected. New medical techniques were developed based on what they learned. The relationship between humans and the Xyloth grew stronger, leading to trade agreements and cultural exchanges that benefited both species. The area where Nathan had performed the surgery was officially designated as a rest stop for Granite Walker herds. The Xyloth built a monument there, a simple stone marker with writing in 3 languages: Xyloth, human, and the symbolic language that Granite Walkers used to mark their territory. The marker told the story of Boulder and Nathan, so that future generations would remember. Years later, Nathan was still working on Helio 7. He had been offered positions on more comfortable worlds, but he always turned them down. This was his home now. He had found his purpose here, building bridges between species and showing that kindness was a universal language. Every few years, when the Granite Walker herd migrated through the region, Boulder would separate from the group for a day to visit the colony. The creature was fully grown now, almost as large as the matriarch had been. Boulder had a family too, with a mate and 2 young calves who looked at the humans with curious eyes. On these visits, Boulder would find Nathan, and they would spend time together.